Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar with Blue Prism and Shibumi, focusing on identifying automation targets with value scoring and prioritization. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items to help you participate in today's event. You can submit your questions at any time during the presentation by typing them into the questions pane of the control panel. There will be a brief Q&A session at the end of each section, at the end of the presentation, and we will address all questions at the end of the presentation, time permitting. If we don't get to your question in the session itself, we will see you the answer over email. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce you your speakers for the webinar today. We've got Erica Murphy, who is the Business Development Manager with the Technology Alliances Program at Blue Prism. In addition, we have Ken Pellegrino, who is the Founder and Chief Strategy Officer of Shibumi, and Mark Di Girolamo, who is also the Co-Founder and Chief Officer at Shibumi. Now, I will invite Erica to take you through the presentation. Over to you, Erica.
Thank you, Raman. Today, we're going to learn more about Blue Prism and hyperautomation, Shibumi's RPA Accelerator, including a demo, and conclude our presentation with Q&A. A little about Blue Prism. We were founded almost 20 years ago and are the pioneers of robotic process automation. Today, we've taken this initial vision of automating simple processes to the digital workforce we know today, a digital workforce for every enterprise. We're unleashing the collaborative potential of human and digital workers, most commonly known as software robots, to transform the future of work so every enterprise can exceed their business goals and drive growth with unmatched agility and speed. This collaboration between digital workers and humans form the digital workforce. The digital workforce is powered by our connected RPA platform, which enables business leaders to create new and exciting business opportunities while transforming business processes to unlock massive efficiencies and gain millions of hours of work back to the business. Blue Prism digital workers work and learn like humans, connecting people and all technologies to perform ever more complex end-to-end activities that drive digital transformation across the enterprise. This vision of operational agility is realized through a digital operating system that delivers an intelligent, skilled digital workforce that serves as a business-led platform for a global technology ecosystem. To deliver on this vision, our software aligns to three core principles. First is that we're business-led. We break the cycle of depending on IT's to-do list, where automation requests can get trapped and not delivered, with robust developer-free automation, easy web services, and drag-and-drop intelligent automation skills. Second, though, we're technology-controlled. We have accreditation for security, things like segregated environments for automation, and more, so to supply that simple governance and support, but still at scale. And lastly is that we deliver this intelligent platform. This has out-of-the-box support for our best-of-breed intelligent automation providers and instant access to these skills, downloadable and ready to deploy via the digital exchange. We're connecting customers to powerful technologies and delivering the power of choice to bring an end-to-end automation lifecycle to our customers. This end-to-end automation lifecycle has 5 key pillars, which start with task mining to identify the processes that are being executed by employees, analyze them, and determine which are good automation candidates. These automation candidates are then brought into the build pillar. This is the output for mining and automates Blue Prism processes and objects to then be provided to your COE, which will then finalize these automations. This is also the area where external capabilities can be included through the drag and drop integrations. After the RPA developers complete the automations, they can then be tested with software to ensure that they're resilient and follow the Blue Prism best practices. And lastly, this digital workforce is automatically managed giving time back to the COE to develop new automations. Underpinning this entire automation lifecycle are partners like Shibumi. Using their digital transformation platform, they're able to streamline the ROM implementation across the COE and govern the advancement between the 5 pillars above. This robotic operating model operationalizes this implementation. There needs to be a vision and organization on how to get this well designed and supported. And to be able to do so, we look at our 7 foundations here for a successful deployment of the robotic operating model. At a high level, we'll start with defining our vision and then defining the organizational design that supports ensuring the capability and aligning it with your current corporate strategy and culture. As we begin to better understand the ideas we have around this, we want to make sure that we run through an assessment and pipeline triage and be on the same page in terms of creating a methodology and delivery approach that can begin to allow you to create a library and a model for all these processes and help adjust them as needed. Finally, you're going to need to have the right people embedded in this affair and the right technology to scale and support your vision alongside creating a service model that can help maintain its success. Shibumi's digital transformation platform facilitates these first 3 foundations of the robotic operating model: vision, organization, and governance and pipeline. Today, Ken is going to walk us through how Shibumi's RP Accelerator drives your digital transformation initiatives, delivering better results at scale. Over to you, Ken.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Erica. And thanks everybody for attending. So, voice with the name, Ken Pellegrino is Shibumi. So, as you were just talking about it, you're right. We really help work well with Blue Prism in terms of being able to deliver and kind of scale on and really become something that can help from the robotic operating model to really energize the COE, right? And why do we do this? This is what we see, and you guys have seen this before. I'm sure everybody reads a lot of articles and has talked in the organization to their peers. We have plenty of organizations that struggle with ultimately crossing the chasm. And when we say crossing the chasm, we're really talking about achieving big time scale and value out of your automation program. And so when we talk about that, there are lots of reasons why. There's lots of challenges about that. But the good news is it's not about the automation technology anymore. A couple of years ago and over the last year, people have started to realize that it's not the technology anymore. It's not the fact that automation is this new capability. It works. Organizations are using it successfully all over the world. What we start to see now is it's less about the technology and more about how we organize, how we assess the actual management of the program itself. And so what we've seen is, organizations typically, especially the ones we get involved in early, have pockets of automation teams, and they're working off of multiple spreadsheets and PowerPoint slides. And when you have that sort of disparate set of groups and teams and collateral, you end up with struggling to get a single enterprise view of your entire program from end to end. And as part of that, what it leads to is a little bit of disjointed kind of assessment, or where should I start? Where should I get going? Where should I focus on? And so as organizations embark on automation, they typically tend to focus on things that are within their control, right? And by focusing a lot on the technical delivery, so we're going to start executing on an automation program, so let's take some processes and start to execute them and get our feet wet. That's a nice approach in some aspects, but if you're not focused on the value, which oftentimes in the very beginning, that's not front and center, it can tend to lead to automating processes that are less optimal, or the ones that don't have the biggest return back to the business. And when you don't have that, what does that really lead to? It obviously creates the challenge of really establishing a consistent approach that focuses on value and really giving an organization an end-to-end view to say, I want to understand both the health as well as the wealth, meaning the value that my automation program is returning back to the business can become a challenge. And that's the awesome marriage between Blue Prism and Shibumi, is that connection that allows for us to have a mechanism to deliver automation, but also have a structure in place that allows us to go from ideation all the way to delivery in a platform that helps really focus on value. So when I say that, this is what I mean, is that our approach to the marketplace is really to kind of take, I almost want to say, take the end and start and go from there. So we really want to say, let's talk about what the outcomes are of the program. How do we really take a holistic approach to an automation program? It start with outcomes. What are you trying to do? What are the objectives? What are the business tangible things that you need to execute upon to really help drive your organization forward, leveraging a capability like automation? And then as you go through, so once you've defined your outcomes, everything kind of flows from there. Now I need to go off and start to canvas my organization for ideas, and we'll talk about each of these components in a second. So canvas the organization for candidates or ideas for automation, and then put them through an apples-to-apples comparison. Define the business case, both quantitatively and qualitatively, with configurable scoring metrics, and actually generate that business case. And then when you have them, that gives you the opportunity to rank and prioritize and compare and contrast different opportunities to identify which ones are the ones that are going to give us our biggest bang for the buck, and actually get those approvals through a governance process to say, here's our candidates we're going to execute upon, and then really track the timeline delivery for that. And then ultimately, when we do go live, when we do deploy our automation through Blue Prism, track the benefits that are alongside. It's not just about the delivery, it's about the benefit that the organization is achieving, and making sure as part of our process and built into everything we do, we're always tracking the benefits that we're realizing and how they're comparing against those business cases. As a COE, are we getting better, or are we accurate with our assessments? And making sure that we build that end-to-end loop between an idea, a delivery of that idea, and ultimately how is it serving to define or deliver on those business outcomes that we started with. That's what we're all about when we're talking through this end-to-end platform. And what does that really mean, right? It gives you all of these great benefits, which is when you have an end-to-end approach, you get more timely, accurate data. You get to reduce the benefits or the exercises of trying to manage and deliver on all these, or organize, all these spreadsheets and PowerPoint slides, and instead focus on actually delivering a program. Let an application actually do the work of helping manage the governance, and allow yourself to focus on working with the business, identifying and getting better as a COE to really help deliver on those outcomes overall. So now let's look at each one of those items. It's easier to then talk through, if you think of it conceptually, talk through each one of those chevrons I was looking at on the slide previously. So as I mentioned in the very beginning, starting with the outcome, first and foremost, it's the thing that needs to drive the program. At the end of the day, we're all in a business, we all work for an organization, and it's just the reality. Businesses make investments in programs like an automation program to generate a return, to generate a set of results that they'd like to achieve. So defining that becomes critically important, because you need your North Star, you need to have your, where would we like to take this program, and how do we ultimately work our way towards getting to achieve that outcome. What we often see, and I think it's really important, is to put a target out there. So is it optimized labor costs, which is the most common thing that we've seen? And that's focus on the hours, focus on the dollars that are part of that program. So how much return can we give? If we invest X, what kind of return can we hope to get? And that optimization is important, to be very clear with the organization what we're trying to achieve. And then there are some benefits that allow you to get there. One of those is not just dollars, but what do those dollars or hours saved means? It can be through improved efficiency. Objectives around reducing errors and accuracy leads to things like ensuring regulatory compliance, meaning making sure nothing gets slipped through the cracks. Those are all common outcomes. And it's not just one, it's all of these items kind of come together to help you define or shape out what do you really want out of your automation program. And being very clear helps the organization to focus on identifying the right opportunities to help you achieve those outcomes. The next kind of big step in that process is identifying those ideas. Once you know where you'd like to go, you need to gather all the ideas that you'd like to have, that you think you can get to help you achieve that outcome. And those ideas can get sourced from lots of different places. So obviously there's the idea, and you'll see it in our platform. Organizations start with things like intake forms, and we'll see that as something that in the platform to allow you to canvas a wide variety. Everybody in the organization can have access to a simple form and allow them to solicit the ideas. You want to be able to gather those ideas and put them into a central place so that you can assess and prioritize them. Another great mechanism that becomes part of that is working with, and we've seen, I think a lot of organizations have started to turn towards even more detailed analysis around an idea, and they use process discovery tools like our friends at Fortress IQ and the Celonuses of the world. They go off and actually do analytics around processes to help discover or tease out great candidates for automation. All of those ideas, whether they're groundswell from the intake form as well as coming from discovery tools, should funnel into a central place that allows us to assess and prioritize those to the point of what we've all been talking about around building out your business case. So building out your scoring model to answer questions about fit, et cetera, and carry that forward. And then what really helps is if it's all in a central place, you can create simple dashboards and views that allow you to look at all of this content together and really start to work this as a process versus just ad hoc spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations. And that's really what we're talking about now. When we talk about an intake form, what does that really mean? It means gathering a bunch of detail about this idea to improve a part of a process or an entire process. So what are you looking for? You're really looking to capture the expected benefits, the expected cost, and as we talked about, the efficiency gains or the error reductions, as well as the hard benefits. What is the amount of hours we would anticipate returning back to the business? What is the effective dollars, if you will, that we could return to the organization if we automated, opportunity X versus opportunity Y? And as part of it, then we build out this detailed business case, and that includes a lot of not just the dollars, but also the time horizon that goes along with it. So how long does it take to return that? It's great if I could return $100,000 of business value back if I automate this area, but if it takes me 2 years versus 1 year, I may want to take the one that takes 1 year versus 2 years. So a payback period component becomes really important, and giving out that timeline in conjunction with the value becomes a great way to analyze opportunities and which ones you should work on and which ones should you put on a backlog and address potentially at a later time. And then having it all centrally there allows you to really systematically walk it through an approval process that we're going to track all the way through the system. So when you're doing that, this is kind of what you see, right? So just having questions, one thing, but also having those questions organized to actually help you assess and monitor or evaluate opportunities against each other, you need some consistency. And this is kind of what we see quite a bit is value, which we've just been talking about, which is that dollar value, hours impact, error reduction, that sort of component. But then we also see, and I would suggest you have assessments around then complexity. How hard is it to automate this item? How easily will we be able to take this idea and turn it into an actual automation that will deliver value? And then fit, is it ultimately a good candidate? And then, of course, is it aligned to the core objectives of not only the program, but the organization as a whole? So focusing on a business area that may not have as big of an impact if I focused on an area that could improve my customer performance or my customer satisfaction, those kinds of assessments are really important. And when you organize the questions and the way you're thinking about an automation candidate into these kinds of factors, it allows you to build those kind of comparative analysis. You kind of see this idea of a bubble chart, the idea of being able to create a scoring mechanism where I can do basically pivots on these items. I would also recommend as part of this, when you're looking at it, I've also seen that you can really expand the list of questions that people ask. We've seen organizations that have 10, 15 questions per axis, per complexity, per value. And I would guard against that if I could. I would say an easy factor is if you can get those to around 5 questions per, you tend to end up with a lot better adoption, or it becomes much easier for individuals in the organization that, remember, aren't part of the automation program. They just have an idea, to be able to answer a quick set of questions and solicit the idea. When you ask too many questions, sometimes it actually creates an organization's, almost makes it more challenging for somebody to do it, and almost becomes a hassle, which really kind of brings the detriment of the program. You want to canvas as many ideas as possible and pull them into your funnel, if you will. And then when you get it, this is the whole point. You've identified those ideas, you've assessed them on each one of those criteria. Now it is time to rank them. And if you've done it with a systematic approach, you now have an ability to compare apples against apples, right? Which opportunities are going to have the biggest impact? Which ones are going to give us the quickest return? Which ones are the easiest? And use all of those factors to actually help communicate the impact of the program and which automations we should work on first, which ones we should put on the backlog, and also for your business users to explain to them why the priorities are the way they are. We're going to execute on these 5 processes first, and these are our next level of processes. Having a standardized way to assess and prioritize allows for that conversation to be much less emotional and much more about the impact that this is going to return to the business overall. And then as part of that, when you do green light those programs, we then track the delivery of that program all the way through, and it is time to then manage the milestones and tasks. Treat each automation like a mini project, and that allows you to ensure that you're executing on all the steps and you're not missing any as you track it through to its deployment. So as you're getting an automation ready for deployment. But what becomes really important in that scenario is it's not just about tracking the delivery. Because we have already established a business case, we've established a timeline, delays in your work plans can equal delays in the benefits that an organization is going to achieve. And when you combine these two concepts together, it becomes a really powerful mechanism to understand the impact of change. If an automation is delayed for some reason because we have some slippage in our timelines, you can immediately show the impact of what that's going to mean to the bottom line, to the return back to the business, and be able to communicate that back up to management and senior leadership around delays and things of that nature. And then once you've tracked the delivery of that program or that automation all the way through, it leads to kind of the whole point is, what's the value that we've delivered? What have we done to automate that? That benefits realization tracking is probably the key component of this. And what does that really mean? It means with our great partnership with Blue Prism, we can reach down into the Blue Prism technology and extract out the actual performance numbers of an automation, of a process that's being executed, and use that to compare against the business case and see, are we having the impact we wanted to have? So that should we be tweaking our assessment criteria? Should we be tweaking our scoring mechanisms? And also to communicate back to the organization, we have executed on these 10, 15, 20, 50 processes, and as a result of that, we've returned this value out of those automations. And oh, by the way, here's the backlog of ideas that are sitting out there. That's what we talk about when we say the end-to-end cycle. That's what we're really talking about now is on the left, again, defining the outcomes, gathering all our ideas through either discovery tools, through intake, prioritizing those, building out those business cases, tracking the delivery, and then as part of delivering it in Blue Prism, actually extracting out the benefits realization side of it, meaning the metrics, the measures that allow us to understand, is this automation having the impact we wanted to have on the business case overall? It's a really important end-to-end cycle, and it really is one of the key factors that helps you drive really scalability in an organization. And now if you think about it, we've seen this in the marketplace. This isn't just us describing it. Our partners are delivering this in the marketplace all over the place. So if you're working with advisory firms, they have methods and approaches. If you're looking for something, the product is sitting out there that has a set of those methods and approaches embedded in it. And our partners and our customers are all moving towards the idea of having this end-to-end approach. And we really thank them for their help and support as they go off into the marketplace and deliver to organizations that are looking to help scale and manage their programs. I will use that as a pause because it's probably a good time to shift and actually see it, the technology itself. So I will hand over the mic to Mr. Mark Girolamo. And Mark, could you show a little bit of the software and how it really kind of comes together in the system?
Yeah, let's do it. Thanks, Ken. Let's switch screens here. I will share Shibumi with you, and we'll take a look at how we actually do all of this. So as both Erica and Ken mentioned, Shibumi is very much focused on being able to manage a set of opportunities through a life cycle, apply governance to those opportunities every step of the way, and really define the business case that the business will expect through automation of that opportunity. So what we'll do today is really step through a series of tabs in the Shibumi platform to illustrate what we've been talking about through slides up to this point. What I've done is simply logged into the application via my web browser. You can use a desktop, a tablet, a mobile, really whatever form factor you have to get access. And I've been invited to collaborate on an RPA COE, the one that we're looking at here. When I first log in and open up Shibumi, this dashboard is the first screen that I see. And this right off the bat starts to illustrate really what Shibumi is tracking and the data that is important. And you can see it's mainly around benefits. So that term benefit, I will repeat kind of over and over again as I'm stepping through the application. But this is very important. Up at the top, you see some highlights of what the benefits are that we expect and how they fit in the pipeline of opportunities. So we have just about 1 million of benefit in our pipeline. We're working on deploying 2 million worth of benefits. Our total forecasted savings is 1.76. So these benefits are clearly communicated as we click through the application and see the various opportunities that we're tracking. As was mentioned before, benefit is never just a point in time value. It's usually over a period of time. So you'll see some additional charts and views in the application as we progress that take that benefit and spread it out over a timeline. So for instance, this forecasted savings view shows us over the next couple of quarters, couple of years, what are the expected benefits against targets that we've set for the COE overall. What I'd like to do now is simply step from left to right through these tabs that you see up on the top and start to illustrate some of the additional information that we capture and manage in the application. So the first one I'll look at is the opportunities. This tab, oftentimes when we get involved with a new customer, they are already doing some level of opportunity management, typically through a spreadsheet. And they really are comfortable with this type of view, where we list out all of the various opportunities that they're tracking currently with some additional information about each one of them. So this opportunity list is just a big list of all of the opportunities that we're currently tracking and where they sit and some relevant information. And then I can start to filter and look at this from different perspectives. So I might want to look at just the opportunities that are currently in progress. And maybe just ones that are within the finance work stream. So you could start to filter and collapse this list, ultimately getting to something that you're interested in and then drill into it and look at much more detail. The other part that is accessible from this tab is that intake form that Ken was mentioning. So if I have an idea for a new opportunity within the system, I can pull up the intake form and start defining some detail about my idea and submit it into Shibumi. The key point with this intake form is it can be shared with a very wide audience within the organization. They don't even necessarily have to have access to Shibumi itself. This could be placed on an intranet site to collect ideas. The next tab that we wanted to look at is now let's start the process, the workflow that we're going to put all of these ideas through. Ultimately, what we're tracking and managing in Shibumi are opportunities for automation, but those opportunities flow through a life cycle. So what we're looking at here are ideas that were just submitted into the system through some form of an intake form, an integration to Fortress IQ or a process mining application. These could come from a variety of sources. But we start to see all of them that are queued up as ideas with some additional information about the cost and the benefit and the alignment, et cetera. And ultimately, and most importantly, we generate a score for each one of the opportunities in the system that allows you to rank and make a decision to push it along into the next phase. So for instance, one of these with a score of, let's choose this one with a score of 89, I can approve this and move it into the pipeline. As I do that, it'll push into the next phase and we can track it accordingly. Like we saw on the dashboard, again, we like to highlight some of the key information that we're looking at within each one of the tabs. So, we have 15 ideas sitting here. We just got 9 in the last month. Might be relevant, important information. And really importantly, the total value of all of these ideas sitting here is 2.8 million. So if you think back to, what are the objectives for the program? Maybe an objective is to hit a certain value number. And if it's 3 million, you know that we're almost there. We have 2.8 queued up in our idea phase. So it's really easy to track that type of information. As we move to the next tab, pipeline, this is where we've done some cursory approval from idea, but now we want to track some additional information. And typically, you are zeroing in on a more realistic benefit number in this stage. You may get some additional people involved to do some analysis on the idea, on the opportunity. And these various numbers, these scores, you really start to zero in on the true number. What is the true savings that you expect and the hours saved that you expect, et cetera. So you put a little more effort into zeroing in on these numbers. We have a variety of visualizations that we provide in the application to look at all the data that we're tracking and produce views that help you make better decisions. So at the pipeline stage, we have a bubble chart that people often like to use to start to rank the various ideas against one another and see which ones they want to execute on. In classic bubble chart form, up and to the right is better. So you would start to look at all of these and figure out, maybe call, meeting, is a good one to execute against. Has a lot of net savings because the bubble is large. So that one might be one that you want to look at. And then again, you can push them through to the next stage within their life cycle. So if we look at, we come down here, these are all of them that are sitting in pipeline. We can see automate payroll tax filings was one that we liked. So if it has been submitted for approval, we could now approve it and push it into in progress. That brings us to the next stage within the life cycle, the in progress stage. And a lot is happening now at this point for an opportunity. We've approved it and we're now working on it. So the cost that we assumed to deploy a particular opportunity is now being incurred. We're doing the work necessary to get the opportunity deployed and automated within the Blue Prism environment. So there's some additional information now that we're displaying in this phase. Again, it's all based on an opportunity. Here's everything that's sitting in progress. All of these opportunities that are sitting here total just shy of $1.5 million of benefit. We can track, how they're doing from a health perspective. We now start to see a status, a red, yellow, green status on each of them. We can see what percentage of activities are completed. So all of the different steps that have to get completed to actually deploy this opportunity. We can see where we're at with a bit of a workflow view or a work plan view. And the target go live, which is critically important here. Two are at risk, two are off track. We could drill into those and see what's going on and try to get them healthy again. And then we have some that are done. All of the activities have been completed. We're ready to go live and deploy them. So they're pending deployment approvals. This is the next stage within the life cycle. Let's click over there and we can see kind of the last stage, deployment. By the way, while we're looking at this stage, we'll drill into one of these opportunities and take a look at some more detail you can track with each. So here we are at the deployment phase. We've gone through the full life cycle. We've taken an idea and pushed it through all the way to a deployed bot now that is executing within Blue Prism. We start to see the benefit realized. So, about 0.2, 0.3 million of benefit realized. We're still early in the COE. We haven't been executing for very long, so we haven't built up much benefit, but this will grow over time. You can see the benefit realization chart supports that. We got going in June, so there will still be some time before we really start hitting the numbers that we want to. And we've deployed 4 processes up to this point. We start to see what the estimated savings is for each of them. And, if there's some failed executions, we can track that as well. What we also track now in the deployment phase are the bots, or the digital workers rather, that are powering all of these automated processes. And we can track their performance along with the automated processes that are executing. So you can get a full picture on how your automation environment is supporting the business objectives that we're tracking on the Shibumi side. So at this point, let's drill into one of these opportunities and see some details for each of them. I'm going to choose this onboarding and exiting of temporary part-time workers. So as I drill in, I'm now looking at a particular opportunity within the system. This ultimately was submitted via an intake form. It's part of the HR work stream. And we can see that it's flowed through its entire life cycle all the way into deployed. So it's gone through all of its approvals, all of its submission for approvals, and landed at the end. In the pipeline stage, when we were building out the business case and defining all of the detail for it, we still see some of the numbers that were generated at that point. So overall, this scored an 84% in our in our calculation. The alignment to the strategy was 80%, and really, very importantly here, the expected annual benefit of automating this opportunity was just shy of $230,000. So post-automation, once we automate it, this is the annual benefit that we expect as a result of automation. This automation went live in July. That's the implementation date that we've tracked. So since then, we've generated about $45,000 of benefit. And if you do the quick math in your head, that's just about lining up. So our expectations are correct. After a full 12 months, we should be very close to $226,000 of benefit. As the stage in progress, when we were building out the bot and managing the activities, we were tracking status. So we can see, Dan here on the 6th said it was a successful go live, and that's the last one that we've tracked on this opportunity. The details tab really is where we track and generate all those numbers that we were looking at previously. So how do we figure out that it's worth $226,000 of benefit and just over 8,000 hours of saved time? Well, we do that through a series of questions. Ken was mentioning this in the deck. There are various questions that we can ask that allow us to generate scores within the system. So when we originally defined this, there were 5 people involved. They spent about half their time, or 30 minutes rather, and 350 times a month. So they do it a lot for 30 minutes. So they're making, about $27 an hour. We thought 80% of all of those tasks involved in the system could be automated. So that produces this number on the right-hand side. By the way, all of these questions that you see in this tab here, these are not fixed within the system. These are all configurable. So if you have slightly different formulas or slightly different questions that you'd like to ask within your COE, that's completely supported and expected. So this labor savings detail, this is one of the main sets of numbers that we track in the system, but there's also often additional benefits that you'd like to identify related to an automation. So, we have just a couple examples of this in here around error production, productivity improvement. And if you have those additional benefits, you could assign a value, a dollar value to them, and just give them a little bit more annotation around what that is. And those additional benefits would then be added into the total benefit. In this case, we didn't have any, so the total equals the labor benefit. If we scroll down a little bit further, complexity. So what is the complexity level of this process to help us determine, what is the complexity of automation? So there's a series of questions that can be asked there with a, high, medium, low type of answer. Based on how you answer these questions, we again generate a score and start to determine a complexity level. And again, these are completely configurable, and you can make them match whatever process you are currently using. And then, of course, there's the costs. So we think implementation is just going to be a $15,000 flat fee at medium complexity level, so we can track it here. And then alignment. So this is another big one. There are some kind of strategic objectives for automation within this COE. These, 5 different factors are what we want to focus on. So how well are we aligned to those? And you can see based on my answers here, we're 80% in alignment. So all of these numbers contribute to this overall score, which we used as we were pushing this opportunity through its life cycle. Once we hit in progress and we were running the opportunity and building out the bot and doing what we needed to, we were tracking a series of activities within the system. This point within the process is key. So sometimes our customers use Shibumi to manage these activities natively within the application. As you can see, we can track, activities and action items. We can set ownership and when it should start, when it was finished, when it should be finished, and when it was finished. So we have capability of managing this natively within the application, but this is often another integration point to work management systems, PPM systems, agile management systems. We have a variety of integrations that can be leveraged here, or you can use out-of-the-box native activity management. In this case, we finished everything, right? We finished well before go live. This one was on track, all as expected. We like to highlight here within Shibumi is around auditing and the history that we're tracking around everything within Shibumi. So, one of the terms we use often here is Shibumi never forget. So any updates or edits that you make to the system are logged in our history table and can be pulled up at any time. So if there is any requirement around, auditing, we have full support and history logs that you can pull up about anything and everything that is tracked within the system. So the last tab I wanted to touch on here in an opportunity is now the execution tracking. So this opportunity has been deployed. It's out being executed within the Blue Prism system. And we've identified and we've created a process that is now being executed in Blue Prism to automate this. What we found early on is oftentimes an opportunity in Shibumi turns into one automated process within Blue Prism, but that's not always the case. Sometimes an opportunity within Shibumi actually turns into multiple automated processes within Blue Prism. So here is where I could add multiple here if necessary that are all associated to this one opportunity within Shibumi. In this case, there was just one. And below, we see the execution details that we're tracking within Blue Prism. So through our integration, Blue Prism is sending us audit details on a cadence. In this example, it's daily, where we're getting really out of the box 3 key pieces of information from Blue Prism. So most importantly, how many times did this process execute, and how many times did that execution fail within the last 24 hours? So we're counting all of those up over time, and now we have this historical information about that. And then also the duration. How long did it execute? And this is typically in seconds. These are very important because we use this data to compare it against those assumptions that we made in the business case. So we're saying it's running roughly 1,700 times per month. We see this over time. And we want to make sure that that lines up with our estimations here. And in fact, that is. So we're on track with this example to hit the expected benefit that we want for our. The other part about the Blue Prism integration is it's extremely flexible. Shibumi is a very flexible system. Blue Prism, as I'm sure you all are aware, can do just about anything. So if there are additional pieces of information that you would like to pass from Blue Prism to Shibumi, some additional KPIs that you want to measure and compare to the business case, that's a common request and easily supported through the integration that we've developed. At this point, just one last screen I'd like to show in the Shibumi environment, and then I'll pass it back. is this last tab, well, nearly last tab, reporting. So what I've done is just navigated right back up to the top to the COE view. And if I go over to the reporting tab, this allows us to create a snapshot of what has happened in this case in the last 30 days. So often what we're asked for is, this is great. I'm able to track and manage a lot of information around each one of my opportunities and put it through a logical life cycle. But what I'd also like to do is now with that data that you're tracking, give me these snapshots over time. And we can do this, the last week, the last 30 days, the last 90 days, the last quarter, and start to show you the delta. So within the last 30 days, we've added nearly $70,000 of benefit into our forecast. 2 opportunities have changed their benefit assumptions. This one dropped 180. This one increased 100,000. 2 new opportunities have been deployed in the last 30 days. 2 new have been added into development. We have the numbers, the benefit numbers that are associated with each of those, and some details around each of them. So this gives you these nice snapshots over time of what has changed. And often these are used in briefing meetings with executives and stakeholders to show them the progress that you've made within the COE and the additional benefit you've unlocked for the organization over time. So with that, I'd like to pass it back and probably start the QA at this point.
Let me, I have a couple quick wrap-up slides that would make sense here. So I'll do the quick wrap-up on it. And I appreciate it, Mark. That was awesome. So the end-to-end, right, and this is what we just talked through again, kind of to summarize. We're really talking about the benefit life cycle, the end-to-end management of value from defining outcome all the way to benefits realization. And hopefully you guys saw that or caught that as we walked through both the presentation as well as the software itself to be able to kind of help us define our outcomes, track then the opportunities, the candidates all the way through, and then deliver on the value on the back end and track and confirm that the automations that we want, that we green lighted when we are building on our business case are really getting realized and manifest into value, impact, hours saved, dollars returned back to my business, and then using the dashboarding capability of Shibumi to really present back the organization kind of what's the health of our automation program and what's the potential out there that hasn't even been acted upon. When you think about it collectively, right, this is what we see, and we've seen this quite a bit. There's on average, taking the ROM approach and leveraging Shibumi turns some really impressive value. So we see pipeline growth accelerate tremendously. So if you're having a challenge, this may be something you may want to look at. And taking this approach, using technology like this to be able to help really put a charge in the amount of opportunities that you're assessing, prioritizing on, put a jump start to that. And that usually translates to a huge amount of hours that are out there that you can communicate, savings that you can communicate back to the business, which translates into the actual hours, which translates into real dollars that can be communicated back to the business. Having this approach really has that end-to-end impact that you can tout to the business stakeholders and the executives in an organization as to why they should continue the investment, and even more importantly, why they should really double down and triple down on the automation program, because it does deliver the tangible results you're looking for. And all of that stems from helping organize and pick the right processes and identifying the ones that may have the most impact, so that you are getting the biggest return that you'd look for in your investment. And then, honestly, don't take our word for it. Tons of customer testimonials, lots of partners that are in the ecosystem. We'd love to be able to help and support you as best we can. And then, honestly, finally, I'll make this my last slide, Raman, promise, is that anybody in the ecosystem of the Blue Prism ecosystem can have access to the platform. It's available out on the DX for organizations, as well as you could contact, obviously, Erica or myself, and we'd be glad to help you get in touch with anybody from either team globally to be able to support and automate anybody's automation programs. I will put my hands up and say I pause, and that's most of the that's the presentation that we had squared away today. I'll turn it over to Raman for any questions and wrap up.
Thank you, Ken, Mark, and Erica for a lovely presentation and demo. We're going to now begin to answer the questions you've submitted during today's presentation. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane in your control panel. So our first question, and I guess this goes out to both, so I'll request Erica to answer first from a Blue Prism perspective and Ken from a Shibumi perspective. Is there training available for either products?
I can start with that answer. So for Blue Prism, there is indeed training. It is also available there on the digital exchange, which will provide you with trial licenses as well as 10 pieces of the program to run through. Ken, how would we get training for Shibumi?
No, it's a great question. So the positive on it is that everything you saw on that platform, minus obviously the ideas themselves, comes directly out of the box when you connect on it on the DX or when you contact us. So the good news is it's pre-set up with all of those factors that are sitting in there. And then if you do need to go through and the training, we do have admin training available that becomes standard as part of acquiring a license of Shibumi. The training comes as part of that scenario. And then we have a ton of online help that allows you to answer questions specifically around how it works, how the actual process works, and the work that's evolved around the accelerator that we've been looking at today. So there's a ton available out there.
Thanks, Ken, Erica. I'll move to question number 2, which is directed towards Ken. What tool are you currently using to track the actual work being done?
There's 2 parts to that answer, I would imagine, right? First, of course, it's our product that's managing most of this activity, which is Shibumi, right? So we're managing the product itself. It's a cloud system that we built about 8 years ago that has all the capabilities. It's our application that sits as part of it. But of course, we also recognize, and Mark even mentioned it and did a nice job in the presentation, that we can be part of a larger ecosystem in an organization. So we're not always the end-to-end platform for every piece of it. So we have excellent integrations to BI products like a Power BI or a Tableau. Obviously, we have the integration of Blue Prism and as well as the process discovery tools I mentioned, as well as then on the tracking the work, the delivery actions and tasks. We do a great job of integrating to different products that are in the ecosystem for project management and tracking. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Ken. That does answer the question. And then the final one, again, to you, Ken, is there an ability to utilize the platform to support additional opportunities such as machine learning or business process management?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So, we started Shibumi, as I mentioned a while ago. We're going on a little over 8 years now, to manage and help organizations on all kinds of strategic initiatives, whether they be large cost takeouts, whether they be post-merger integration, or whether they be an automation specific or automation first kind of focus model. So it's built to be able to gather all types of ideas or candidates and put them through that same process. And so those questions can be tweaked or expanded to be able to capture all kinds of ways to deliver on an automation program, which is really the hyper-automation story, right? The ability to bring in all kinds of different factors in to help assess. So the product is built to be able to manage those types of broader use cases, as well as very specific RPA, as well as the broader kind of machine learning type of activities that go in.
Thanks, Ken. Thank you. We have received quite a few attended questions through the question pane, and due to timing, we will compile all answers and respond offline. Thank you for attending today's webinar. A copy of this recording will be made available via a follow-up email. On behalf of Blue Prism and Shibumi, thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.
Cheers. Thank you. Thanks, Raman. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.